Exomologiste to Kyrio te agathos alleluia.
Otis ton neona to eleos aftu alleluia.
It's only artificial intelligence
There he is.
destroying.
Guy who baptised Tommy.
It's only Bob the Builder.
Do you want to have a debate?
We're debating, yes, in a few minutes. Yeah, in a few minutes.
In a few minutes.
Wander, we were discussing. Let me just bring
No,
you up.
she'd never come
let's
up to me and say
let
that.
me just bring you up to speed as to where we were.
The man who baptised
Addy here.
Tommy the Zionist Robinson.
Yeah, the cycle path is obviously not open today, in case you didn't notice. Yeah, but you can go around the other side.
have eyes,
there.
you
Go
have
around the other
eyes.
side. Just look, there's a crowd of people.
Go on,
there
Communist
on a
Workshop
cycle.
Party.
So
Catch us up.
The argument was,
Yeah,
well, he said, can artificial intelligence,
yeah.
what was it, create a theocratic
Morality.
a theocratic. And then I cited you and your friend over there a few minutes ago discussing Christian doctrines. And I said, yes, you can feed in all the information from the Bible. In fact, you can feed in all the
You can do that to any
library,
computer.
all the library of the Vatican.
Do that into Google.
Feed it all in to a large language model, a specialized large language model for the Pope, for example, or for Bob the Builder, and then reconstruct arguments
There's rumours
based
going on,
upon
he
that.
don't really know that much about Christianity, it's all fake.
Just ignore the guy.
I'm ignoring him now.
Yeah.
I'm ignoring.
He wants
He's trying to
to
goad
God.
you. He's trying to goad you.
I want to talk to you.
What do you want to debate?
Well, you came over to me to ask me a question, so I
I didn't
figured.
come to ask you a question, but I don't mind. I
Alright.
don't mind
No,
debating
you're a
with
bit
Bob.
rude
What do you want to
because
debate
he's
about?
actually doing something now. He's
well,
doing a video
well,
now.
I
You're
put- I
not
got
the
you a
same-
gift,
you're not the
specifically
same
for you.
as
Have a
his
gift.
corner.
Of course. You love this one.
As we were discussing artificial intelligence, and that was a subject matter I was thinking of talking about, I don't mind discussing that. Is that of any interest to you?
Yeah, I could discuss that.
God and artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
mankind and artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
and the future of humanity, and of the negative
Francis
and the positive,
Galton
that
and
sort of
John-
I
stuff.
think we're going to agree upon a lot.
We may or may not, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Can I chime in then?
Yeah. So the question is what? What would you, how should we agree a thematic for debate?
Fair enough. I mean, I'm trying to connect it. No, I'm just trying to connect it to AI, since that's what you've invited me in on.
Yeah, well these are big themes of the day. and-
Yeah,
and-
like,
How about connecting it to Charles Darwin?
Like-
Francis Galton?
well, we could do.
What
two-
would
we could
Jesus
do.
say
Can I
about AI?
quote
There's
Darwin?
an interesting dialect.
Oh, we got an out of date old crone here.
Two sides. What would Karl Marx say about AI?
Sorry, sir. Oh.
My argument. And what would Jesus Christ say about AI? In your opinion, obviously you don't want to pretend to be Jesus Christ, nor do I want to pretend to be Karl Marx. But we can
brilliant.
both
Yeah,
be
let's do that.
interpreters
Great.
Of those
I think that is a fair way
like
to
to
do.
start?
Yeah,
Would you
I'll
like
go.
me to start?
Go on, I'll jump in.
So, have you had time to think about that?
Yeah, I don't need time. I don't need time.
require a-
I don't need a minute. I'm already good.
No
I'm already. I'm good. I'm good to go.
So here we are. Bob the Builder, infamous Speaker's Corner,
Infamous.
Christian Evangelist,
Arsehole.
and Heiko
Arsehole was Speaker's Corner.
infamous Marxist speaker at Speaker's Corner, and we will be debating what Jesus Christ would think about artificial intelligence versus what Karl Marx would think about artificial intelligence, and then of course we can cross-sect
What about
and
Charles
disagree.
Brilliant. I think that's a
We
great
are
topic.
not on Charles Darwin.
And Francis
Brilliant.
We are not on them.
Or Herbert
We've
Spencer.
both decided to restrict the question to those questions.
Brilliant.
How much time do we get each?
3 minutes.
3 minutes? Is that timed by somebody?
Would someone like to time it? 3 minutes,
don't
3
time
minutes.
things
We
here.
do it.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Do you want to time it,
You're
JC?
told to shut
No,
your mouth,
we
don't worry about that.
do the timing.
Do you want to? Anybody want to time us?
You've got to have rules with people like this,
10
haven't you? 'Cause they
seconds,
take
10
liberties.
seconds warning. 15 seconds warning.
Yeah. Let us know when. Let us know when the fast.
I've got a stopwatch.
Why have we let him come here and monopolise it?
It's fine.
He's only a two-bob geezer.
It's fine.
He's only a two-bob geezer.
You decide what you want to do. I decide what I want to do.
More
Yeah.
interested in
Under your
getting up
control.
with, what's his name?
He's just a troll. Why do you let him go,
He's
Jim?
not a troll. But it's not for you to decide
If you don't like it.
whether I debate him or not.
That's it. Fold your arms. Feel a little bit uncomfortable, do you, Bob?
Right.
You'll be told to fuck off many times.
Don't bother me. Don't bother me. Let him go on.
Don't have a tone
Let
like
him go
that.
on.
No, what should I? He's a cunt.
Let him go on.
You can think that, but don't have a tone like that. It's a
Well,
debate
he
between
shouldn't
me
throw
and
me
him.
off, should he?
He's feeding on the attention. Just ignore him. He is.
Don't do it. He gets
I don't
wound
like
up.
you, don't you
trigger him.
understand?
He doesn't
I don't
like
like you.
That's fine. But that's Speaker's Corner. You know what I mean? You don't have to
Right.
like
But I
everybody.
shouldn't think he should.
Shall I go first, or do you want to go
You
first?
can go first.
All right.
There you go.
So on my first word, start the clock, and then give me a 30-second warning, a 15-second warning, and a 5-second warning. 2, 1. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about what is the Christian perspective on AI versus the Marxist perspective on AI. The first thing that I would like to point out to you, which is a tangent to the debate, so it's the only time that I'm going to touch upon it, is that the obsession and concern about AI is masking two other kinds of revolutions that we're facing in our world that we're not talking enough about. And the first one is the genetic revolution, and the second is the bodily or mechanical augmentation revolution. I encourage you to go away and look into both, because whilst we're all talking about AI, those two are slipping under our horizons and we're not thinking about it. Now, to understand the Christian perspective on AI, you've got to first understand the Christian perspective. Jesus, when he came, he preached about the idea of the kingdom of God, and that the kingdom of God was establishing itself on earth because of him and because of what he was doing. And that kingdom of God was waging war against the principalities and demons and powers of this world to free man from sin. Now, in that context, ladies and gentlemen, in that context, Christians look not at tools like AI, but we look about how they are used. We're not so much concerned about the development of language systems, but we are concerned about what the superstructure of those language systems are being designed by, according to what value system. Because your values are connected to your doctrines. The values that you believe in emerge from what you believe about man, the world, and man in the world, as Haiku is about to demonstrate when he talks about communism. And so Christians, when it comes to AI, do not label it as either bad or good. What we do is we assess how it impacts us as human beings and what are the values by which it is coded by. And one of the greatest problems about AI, I think, from a Christian perspective, is that it encourages intellectual idleness. It will endanger us by literally handing over our autonomy and our ability to think and research for ourselves to a machine coded by a select group of technical priests.
Here, here.
Yeah. You can use whatever time I've got left if you want.
I mean, it's a perfectly reasonable method to start. That is to explain what you mean by your basic doctrine, which you're thinking about, and then relate that to the question of artificial intelligence. So I'll do a little bit about that just quickly. So Marxism is a method for understanding the dynamics of society based on the history of social classes arrayed around who owns and controls the means of producing wealth. So the instruments and tools and land by which we shape the world and the way in which the hierarchies of society are organized to structure that production process and the distribution of wealth. So here we have a new tool, a new machine, a new technology produced by the hands and brains of human beings, but apparently out of their control. There are many people who talk about the dangers that AI is impending, or is about to reach a point where it is superior to human beings. And when it is superior to human beings, it may take command over the world, and that would be a tremendously negative phenomenon. So they call this artificial general intelligence. The idea behind it is that the machines will control everything in the world. Human beings will be impotent in relation to the decisions made by those machines, and therefore we're facing an existential threat to the future of humanity and the way we live, because our agency as human beings will be subservient to that of the machine.
Yes.
But I am arguing, based on Marxist outlook, that ownership and control is the decisive question, not the technology itself. I think the idea of artificial general intelligence conquering the world and dominating the world is a dystopian dream of the ruling classes, particularly of the Silicon Valley elite, who have used this mythology, just like the Christians used the resurrection or used the idea of heaven and hell. So the leading lights of technology in Silicon Valley today, from Sam Altman to Elon Musk, are throwing into the air a deluded idea that they can control the entire planet using artificial intelligence, and that if they don't control what happens to it, then it will control all humanity.
That's the goal. And what if you're wrong? That's the goal. He is wrong.
Now, 3 minutes again.
3, 2, 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Can we get someone to speak
Ready?
on behalf
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear. The artificial intelligence, as we have encountered it, has emerged out of a worldview that is rooted in the Enlightenment. And that is a religion that values two things: individual freedom, technology, and rationalism. And it is because of those doctrines and those values that we have arrived at the idea of thinking machines. But I want to pose a deeper philosophical question, which is that the people who are saying that we are creating thinking machines have a view of human ontology that is mechanical. And because of their view of human ontology as mechanical, they think that they are creating thinking machines. I want to suggest to you that artificial intelligence is a myth. We cannot create genuine artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence must have the spark of life that comes from its creator. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, nonetheless, when we create these massive language constructs, we're creating something that at the click of the fingers can draw in and make conclusions from, and learns to make conclusions from, massive amounts of data based upon certain principles being programmed into it. How long have I got? When AI first came out, ladies and gentlemen, when AI first came out, ladies and gentlemen, oh my gosh, when AI first came out, ladies and gentlemen, I started using it, wondering if it would help me in my apologetics work here in the corner. And very quickly I discovered that political correctness had already infected ChatGPT. In other words, you could ask ChatGPT to make a joke about Jesus and it would. You ask ChatGPT to make a joke about Muhammad and it wouldn't. And that's the problem with AI. Is that people who are coding AI are coding to their ideology. And that is the danger. And this is where me and Haiku agree. But we agree for different reasons. We agree that it is important to recognize who are the priests of tech. And no, that isn't a reference to Warhammer 40,000. We, ladies and gentlemen, need to address the ideology writing the coding, and that decides whether AI is good or bad.
a point of which I think is actually incorrect.
Part of this? Have you started yet? Okay. Right.
Yeah, one point I think is incorrect, and that is that, for example, this issue about Muhammad or a joke or something like that, that's not correct. What is correct is that if you use the artificial intelligence large language models on the internet, then they will have a layer. There is a layer of censorship.
You're talking about controlling it.
No, I'm saying what actually exists is a layer of censorship at the interface level that you use on the internet. The same large language models can be downloaded onto your computer, and when you use it on your computer, it will not have those restrictions. So these are restrictions imposed by censorship at the interface level through the internet. So it's not actually internal to the system. You can also have weight biases which are imposed by people who have made programming and emphasis on certain things. So for example, one of the reasons why the Chinese artificial intelligence on videos is superior to the artificial intelligence of Western video production is because they've got a larger database that they've drawn from. And in terms of unified linguistic weight, the Chinese have also got a huge base of information from everybody's communications in China and from the internet publications in China, all in a single language. So you've got English language, you've got Chinese language, each of which will have the largest stores of data from which information is drawn. So those are just technical questions about the organisation of it.
What about related to humanity, like a soul?
Like what?
A soul.
Well, that's not really related to humanity.
Well,
That's related to human beliefs. Human beliefs. Some people believe in the existence of a soul. Now, you might, in fact, materially, I think artificial intelligence is not that different from the religious concept of the soul. I think it's not that different. Now, you're supposed to be tiny, not that different. In fact, you could ask what is the soul. You're saying it's something that outlasts a human being and represents their continuity in the consciousness of other human beings or in a spiritual existence after their death. Now, the closest thing we've got to that in the material world is artificial intelligence. That is true. But I don't believe that is a soul. And I don't believe there is a soul of human beings in any case. So that's why, no, I wouldn't. And that's why, well, this is what we're discussing. We're debating
Time.
And we are debating
Time.
with Christians, so I thought I'd throw that in. Very good. No, very provocative.
Right, on my first word. So, ladies and gentlemen, the problem that we have, the malaise that we have within modernity and Western civilization is, to quote Jurassic Park, we're so enamored by whether we can do a thing, we never stop to ask whether we should do a thing, ladies and gentlemen. And we bow at the cult of the machine in the West. We're obsessed with innovation and technology. That's why we go out and buy new computers when the one that we've already got works perfectly fine, and the new computer only happens to make you a minute faster. But yet we think we need to buy the latest thing. The Christian community, through groups like the Amish and the Bruderhof, offer us a different kind of alternative. Our approach to technology as Christians should be based on Christian values that ask the question, do we need the technology to uphold human dignity? Can the technology enhance human dignity and make it better, or will it make it worse? And it is on this evaluation prism that we should engage with the question around artificial intelligence. Will the use of it make human dignity stronger in culture or weaker? And the evidence at the moment seems to suggest weaker. Let me give you an example. those filthy dogs running communist China are using artificial intelligence to create a social currency in which people have been locked out of parks, locked out of their homes, fired from their jobs by face scans, ladies and gentlemen. They're using artificial intelligence to create a technocracy that imprisons people in an open air prison. And that demonstrates to us that there are just some technologies that give us too much power. And because they give us too much power, we should not embrace them. If the world had thought in a Christian way, we would not face the ever possibility of total nuclear destruction, because society would have gone, this gives us too much power. And that is how we should measure all technologies, ladies and gentlemen, based upon how it impacts human dignity, whether it...
Take an extra minute.
There you go. Whether it impacts human dignity or whether it hinders human dignity. And the evidence would seem to suggest that the moment this power gets into the hands of government, government uses it to decrease human dignity. So maybe, and so do corporations. And so maybe the best way to deal with artificial intelligence is to make it openly available to everybody at the same time without restriction. Possibly, maybe that is a better way to do it.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to fix some of that up, so I missed some of what you said. So if I don't catch up on exactly what you're saying, I think one of the main problem is who owns and controls, shapes the trajectory of a technology.
Zionists.
It's not just Zionists.
Oh,
Zionists are
he's
one
a dirty
component.
dog Chinese, but Zionists do as
I'll
well.
come on to the issue about China and the West. Essentially, the Western powers, ruled by the United States of America, dominate artificial intelligence. One of the reasons why Palantir has been booted out of the French Defense Department and was challenged by the Swiss, was kicked out by the Spanish. I think the Germans have challenged it as well. It's because they don't believe that their own technology is sovereign, and therefore, because these technologies allow the opposing country to utilize the infrastructure that they've got to penetrate into the operational models of society. So, for example, how a bank operates, how a corporation operates, how the financial infrastructure operates, what the people say to each other, how the mass media communicates, what is said to them, how they respond to it, how you can shape opinion. All those things are shaped by the technologies associated with artificial intelligence. So one of the reasons the arguments has been that the technology itself has reached a point where you can literally, if you gain the upper hand, you can destroy your opponent. So you would be able to crash their economic system, destroy their banking system, paralyze their society, take over their weapons, make their weapons attack them, and so on and so forth. So in other words, every weapon that a country has got could then be turned against itself. Every technology that you have got can be turned against you. And everybody understands it in that way, which you've been pointing out, about the individual and the children being manipulated by technology and so on. Rather than them controlling it, it controls them. And therefore the discussion about stopping children from accessing social media and all this sort of, because they don't control it. It's the same dynamic where human beings lose control over the trajectory of the machinery that they themselves, in the abstract, not individually, but in the abstract, have created. And therefore the same question arises that I posed in the first place. which is the classic. I've got 4 or 3.
And wait, that's an extra minute, isn't it? And then
Oh, well, he did 4. Didn't he?
yeah, he did do
So,
yeah.
So the same question arises that I posed in the first place. Who owns and controls is the decisive question. Now that doesn't mean that public ownership will necessarily produce perfect results, or democratic control will necessarily produce perfect results, because we are building technologies on the basis of the existence of societies who have got all sorts of different internal regimes and internal cultural background. So if in Afghanistan today you allow people unrestricted utilization of that technology, they can use it for whatever, a terroristic aim, if the Afghans want to carry out terroristic aims. Or the Americans, of course, who are the dominant power in the world, not Israel, the dominant power is America. The dominant power of America,
Not anymore, mate.
their main reason
fucking lost
for
it.
financing an army of the technology machinery of the Silicon Valley is to try and prepare the ground to destroy China. And they use all sorts of methods to do it. One thing is the endless propaganda campaign to argue that China has got, 1, a generalized social credit system, which they do not.
Agreed.
2, that they have a totalitarian dictatorship, which they do not. I'll come back later on.
So we do 3 minutes, go back to 3 minutes, 3 minutes. So just 3 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen,
Should it be
as
banned?
Christians,
Should it be banned?
as Christians, we wanna measure things through the idea of the kingdom of God. Now, I want to say that Haiku, me and him are agreeing for the most part. He thinks the most important question to ask is who controls artificial intelligence. I want to ask a deeper question. I want to ask the question, what is the ideological narrative that the people who control AI are living by? That's a much more important question. And that is important, ladies and gentlemen, because how you view the world and man's place in the world will directly affect how you use technology, as every society has. And I would suggest to you that Christianity offers to man a lesson that communism doesn't recognize. Christianity offers this lesson: man is sinful in his heart, and he has a corrupt heart that will always pursue sin. Always, in every circumstance. And that means, ladies and gentlemen, that technology that creates power over people's lives and is held by too few people will end up being abused. Ladies and gentlemen, the point of government and the point of technology from the Christian perspective is not that we use technology to serve the god of mammon and economy as the liberals do and the capitalists, but rather that we use technology to service us as we serve God. So that what we should do is have a limited form of AI that can speak into certain questions and not others. And the questions that it should be able to speak into should be decided based upon what is the common good, what would benefit us all, not what would benefit one group over another, ladies and gentlemen. And so there is a Christian approach to technology. But I would say that we need to reframe entirely our understanding of technology and stop seeing it as something to pursue for its own sake. I mean, at what point, ladies and gentlemen, can we say to ourselves that we have enough, that we don't need more? Why do we need constant advancement? Why can't we be happy with what we have? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the radical kind of questions that Jesus asks that Marx didn't even begin to think about. And I want to listen to what he's saying. Can you ask me afterwards?
Just very quickly. Okay.
After he's finished.
So The question about what the technology is used for, I don't think you should restrict what it's capable of doing. But at the same time, you need to have protections for the individuals and for organizations using it to protect their infrastructure, to protect their operations without someone maliciously destroying them. The entire structure of how American artificial intelligence is being designed is to produce, that's the aim, to produce something that would be a godlike knowledge over humanity. A sort of knowledge engine that would dominate the intellectual sphere and be able to predict your actions before you take them, and thereby prevent you from taking them, and thereby prevent other countries from challenging American dominance. That's the ideology that drives American investment in Silicon Valley. But actually, as we've seen last week in the stock market jittering around AI, actually it's a con. There is, my belief anyway, there is never going to be artificial general intelligence. The idea that it will totally surpass humanity, I think, is false. The variety of human activity is too complex. But it can facilitate the transformation of the world into a paradise. I think that is possible. Like the Christians imagine that by changing the spirit and belief of human beings, you can make them behave in a Christian fashion and behave as a brotherhood and sisterhood of man based on living on whatever basics that human beings require to live on, whether it be the aesthetic life of a priest or whether it be, reasonable abundance of a Western millionaire, for example. So they have a belief that changing the mind and morality of man will shape how human beings interact and create a kind of will of God on earth, despite the fact that man is an inherent sinner, according to Bob. According to my view, human beings' behaviour, most of what is considered to be terrible sins today, are products of the organisation of social life, of the organisation and distribution of wealth, and the legacy traditions of the past, weighing on the minds and morality of humanity. And if you remove the objective forces which create and regenerate those poisonous attributes in humanity, then I believe you can create a paradise on earth. And you don't require a God for that. And you don't require a Jesus Christ for it.
Another 3 minutes. 2 more rounds and then stop this one, and then 1 more each, yeah? Okay, go. Ladies and gentlemen, beware of the merchants selling you paradise. The reality is every attempt to create heaven on earth by man has resulted in mass death, corruption and the abuse of power. Whether it's Anabaptists in Munster during the Reformation, or whether it's communists in Russia and Cuba during the Revolution, or whether it's Islamists in ISIS in Iraq and Iran. The reality is those that promise you heaven on earth will only deliver you hell on earth, ladies and gentlemen. It is not for man to establish fully the kingdom of God. That is the role of God himself, and he does it through his Messiah. Let us be clear. Christians did not invent a myth of the resurrection to gain control over people. That is a Hegelian Marxist interpretation, and just a little sprinkling of Foucault in it as well. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, the resurrection was proclaimed because it truly happened. Jesus Christ rose bodily from the dead. And when he rose bodily from the dead, it confirmed his preaching that he has established the kingdom of God on earth. And that kingdom is fighting against the principalities and powers of communism and fascism and ethno-nationalism and Islam and Hinduism and Zionism and liberalism, ladies and gentlemen.
Why
As Christians, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that technology should have its place, but only ever as the servant of man. And until we truly change our relationship to technology, as witnessed by the Amish community and the Bruderhof community, we are constantly going to be slaves of the machine, and therefore constantly slaves of free market societies. Neither of these things are Christian, but neither is communism. The idea that the state should be trusted and that we place our faith in the state to use technology responsibly is foolish, ladies and gentlemen. We need to govern ourselves according to the diktat of mitigating man's sin and his willingness to sin against his fellow man. That must be the governing principle of our laws and the licenses and use of technologies like AI, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
In essence, the disagreement lies in this, is that there is a belief that man is inherently bad, that God is the only determinant of humans' morality, and that human beings can do nothing about that, unless they just adopt Christianity and behave as some kind of Christian icon. And even then, inevitably...
It doesn't have to be Christianity.
Inevitably, well, whatever. This is what he's arguing. Inevitably, they will be failures and sinners, but as long as they bow down and submit, then it's fine. I don't think that's the way the world is. I think the world has been shaped by human beings themselves. God has been created by human beings themselves.
The lockdown showed us differently, IQ.
Christianity, how does it show us differently?
Come on.
How?
Control.
What?
How it was complicit with everything that went on.
How complicit is?
What, you don't think that was the case in
Organised,
the First World War, in the Second World War, in the Crimean War, in the Falklands War, in the war in Ireland, in India? You don't think they were participants in that? You don't think people participated? You don't think people participate in the sense that the structure of society reproduces itself and maintains itself and extends its power. The Christian church itself,
As Bob said,
is a force.
It's always been there.
Would you mind?
It will be manipulated.
I've got 3 minutes to speak. I'm not engaging at that type of argument because that's just he says that, I say that. Why should I listen to what you're saying about it? Yes, but not to answer what you say, just backing him up. I've got to be able to express my point of view. That's
Give
the
me an
point of the
extra
debate.
30 seconds. Give me an extra 30 seconds.
So the argument is,
Yeah, I know you don't like that.
who owns and controls? No, I'm not taking extra. Who owns and controls, and why they own and control? You spoke against free markets. 1 minute. You spoke against free markets. Free markets are capitalism. That's capitalism. Now, if you're against capitalism, what alternative to that free market system can exist? And I believe that the alternative to that is public ownership and democratic control of the means of production. And that is facilitated and made possible for the first time really in history by artificial intelligence. It is perfectly possible to establish a paradise on earth based on artificial intelligence today. That's what I believe. I believe.
Yeah, he does.
I didn't say you have to believe it.
He believes it.
That's what the communists wanted.
I didn't say you have to believe it.
They did.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, this is my final 3 minutes. I like debating Haiku because he understands what Speaker's Corner is about. Unlike a lot of the Islamists who perforate Speaker's Corner who have no clue. This is the spirit of proper debate. And I want to just show my love for Haiku by giving him a gift. This isn't the book. He's got a basic library from me. But
Huge lad.
But that isn't the book that I wanted to give him. The one I wanted to give him is a book full of the testimonies of former communists who all became Christians and why they became Christians. So you'll get that one next time. No, ladies and gentlemen, the debate ultimately boils down to your ontology. And the riders of the apocalypse, that have brought about the destruction of Western civilization, starting with people like Nietzsche and Marx and Herbert Spencer and Foucault, ladies and gentlemen, have created a culture where we don't recognize our own true nature. And our own true nature is bent around itself. And that is the cause of our issue. That is the cause of our problems. And it isn't something that is brought onto us from outside. It is something that we are born in, and the Christian world calls it sin. And it says, the Christian worldview says that to be set free from this, we must place our faith not in a state, not in a philosopher, but in Jesus Christ. And the evidence for the reason why you should do that is because he rose from the dead. And then that sanctifying work will begin to change your life and the world around you for the better. That is why Christians ended the slave trade. That is why Christians fought for women's rights in India and China. That is why Christians fought against poverty in this country and were principally responsible for the founding of the welfare state in this country that dragged millions out of poverty, like William Temple, who is the Archbishop of Canterbury at the time of the establishment of the welfare state. It's why Christians helped to found the Labour Party. Christians changed the world, but unlike communists, we do not change it through violent revolution and oppression and state control of individual lives. We change it by convincing you through words and works of love. Make your choice, a bloody communist revolution or a life-giving revolution of the kingdom of God.
Oh, hey, you can do it.
No, we can't.
Why not afterwards? You want to take questions and answers?
Yeah, we can do questions, yeah.
I mean, I think questions and answers, challenge, direct challenges after.
I think
Have a
that's
session each.
I think that's great.
And then you can all vent your spleen against either of us. Yeah? Is that okay?
No direct challenge.
I don't mind whether you love me or not, really.
Mere suggestion.
I'm not after love here, really.
Be bad.
That's not all of us. Okay, I am.
Get to the point.
Okay, so,
Right. 3 minutes.
so there was a philosopher who inspired Karl Marx, who wrote a book called The Essence of Christianity. And his name was Ludwig Feuerbach. And in Ludwig Feuerbach's book, he explained that man had created Christianity as a positive representation of the spirit of humanity. So the type of discussions which a lot of Christians are motivated around is this belief that humanity collectively combines, creates community, creates a higher order of spirituality and morality by their combination. Now, Marx disagreed with this. He thought the combination was a product of society, yes, a positive thing, yes, but was a creation of the alienated nature of man which could be overcome. Feuerbach did not believe the alienation of man, therefore the belief that God made the world and we're subordinate to him could be overcome. He thought it was something we have to live with, we have to tolerate, we have to accept and perhaps ameliorate the worst aspects of it. Whereas Marx argued you could overcome the alienation of man from themselves, from their collectivity. And that is only by recognizing that the world we have today, what makes man man, what makes humans humans, is their ability to produce, to change the external environment around them and their collectivity itself by their work with their hands and their brains. And I put it to you that everything in Christianity is also the product of physical work and the mental work of human beings. Christianity is Bibles, is churches, is icons, is material resources to be shared, to be lived collectively. And those are the preconditions for the creation of the collectivity of which we discussed. And we also argue that man wasn't made at a particular time. Man was created by their own labour. Human beings were created from ape by the development of the ability to shape tools and shape nature and make tools, instruments and machines which then converted us themselves. But they also created man alienated from themselves in relation to what they make, in relation to property. And therefore the ownership of property and control of property is a decisive phenomenon. In my final 5 seconds, I'd like to say this. We all watched the World Cup, and last week I was making fun, but what the World Cup does, what football does, is show a type of sport that everybody can understand. Everybody, if you like, can determine what should happen here or there. And artificial intelligence provides the means for mankind to apply these type of approaches to all technological questions and material questions that humanity faces. Thank you. Sorry for the extra few seconds.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to ask either of us a question, put your hand up, and then when you're selected, say who your question is for. And shall we do 2 minutes?
We can apply.
2 minutes, 2 minutes. So, who's your question for?
Both of you.
Right, so 2 minutes each on the question. So what's your question?
Okay, so both of you have spoken about AI and what AI should be doing, but you've not spoken about the why. And you've also made the mistake of thinking that AI is somehow something that can be controlled. Let me say.
Sorry, what's your question?
It's open source software. Anybody can get it. What you need to be able to control it.
Okay, any questions, guys? Because she's just giving her own speech. Any questions?
You need a powerful computer. Yeah?
Put your hand up if you've got a question. Right, if there are no questions, I'm going to go. It's lovely talking to you. She's just making her own speech.
What I'm saying is both Haiku and Bob have the possibility. Both Haiku and Bob have the possibility of having both their idealistic dreams.
If you want to join me for a coffee, now's your chance. Okay. God bless you.